sports. They've become pillars of our society that you couldn't even understand society without them. I went to a mall in 1993 when I probably had like $1,000 in cash to my name, and somebody was selling the 1969 Super Bowl Jets helmet for like $700, and I bought it on the spot. The reason is because this is a quite rare LJN. I mean, my favorite really probably is the Macho Man Randy Savage, and I have a bunch right there on my shelf, as you can see.
Welcome back into Mantel Quality Stories. My name is Buster. We have Gary on the show today, and we're going to be trading back stories about 5 items from each of our collections. Mantel Quality Stories. Gary, do you have your 5 items with you?
I do, my brother. I'm actually looking up something on eBay right now because I wanted one data point because I was just coming off a all company-wide meeting. Yep, that's exactly what I thought. All right, I'm good and ready to go.
Love it. You want to go first? You want to show your first item?
Yes, excuse me. Let me go with my first item. Maybe the first expensive thing I ever bought in my life. I went to a mall in 1993 when I probably had like $1,000 in cash to my name, and somebody was selling the 1969 Super Bowl Jets helmet for like $700, and I bought it on the spot. Because back in 1993, fun fact, kids, I would walk around with all of my cash that was to my name on me at all times. This is pre-ATM cards.
That's crazy.
That's how we rolled in the 90s. Anyway, 1969, January 12th, 1969, 68 Jets, Super Bowl III champions, autoed by all the players that are still alive at the time of this, and I'm pretty excited to have it.
That's an awesome piece. All right, I'm going to go with my first. Also, well before my time, but a historic moment in baseball history. Willie Mays, the catch ticket.
Oh, that's
one
cool.
One of the most iconic moments.
I can see it right now in black and white.
That field, the fact that there is some video of it, you know, Willie Mays' place in baseball history. I had to have this ticket. I wish I could have been there, but
good.
No going back.
Coming off the back of WrestleMania, the Bret Hart LJN. And the reason is because this is a quite rare LJN. I mean, my favorite really probably is the Macho Man Randy Savage, and I have a bunch right there on my shelf, as you can see. But these were probably my favorite toys growing up as a kid, this and Star Wars figures. And in the late 90s, I started getting into toy collecting. And instead of selling baseball cards at shows, I was selling toys, which made my best friend Brandon Warnicki quit collecting because he's like, I'm not selling toys. And I was super on it because 4 years later, when eBay really started to hit, toys crushed on there. And my favorite thing to buy at garage sales were LJNs. And this Bret Hart is a very rare one. That's what I was looking up. It's still like a $200 to $300 one in like this kind of condition, which is quite a bit for the LJNs and the excellence of execution.
That's pretty cool. I've seen some big sales in the toy category the last 2 or so years. It's been cool to watch. All right, next item. This is a Civil War appointment from Abraham Lincoln. I love U.S. history. And
Rips, I just pointed at Rips. He loves this stuff too. Like, it's crazy. I love history. Like, it was the only subject I was good at high school, but I've not started collecting historical relics.
I think there will come a day where you'll find something that piques your interest. But the thing that I loved about this, apart from Lincoln actually appointing the guy who was asking, you know, to be a brigadier general in the Civil War, is someone on the back, I think it was the attorney general, referred to Lincoln in present tense. He said, I'll pass the word along to Mr. Lincoln. And I think that is just the coolest thing.
Continuing on the Jets theme, this is a Quinnen Williams draft card, the card that they submit in the teams.
That's cool.
Still on paper. It's 2024. The NFL still writes down their picks and put it in, signed by Quinnen, who really is the draft pick that I think has started what is about to happen, which is a very good era in Jets football history. I'm making the prediction now so I can cut it at the end of this year. I think it's going to be a great year, and Quinnen's draft pick was the first in a long time of like one that has worked out early in the draft. As you can see, the 3rd overall pick. And he's also one of the greatest guys of all time, with one of the great sports meme interviews of all time, where he sneezes and blesses himself. If you've not looked it up, please go Google Quinnen Williams sneezing video. He literally sneezes in the middle of the video and he goes, bless you, thank you. He literally blesses himself and thanks himself. as if he's all of two people and one big human because he's that big. One of my favorite videos and one of my favorite players and one of my favorite people, and so very dear collectible to me.
That interview is one of the smoothest things in human history.
Ever, just like without it, he's just like fully in it, sneezes, keeps going, goes, bless you, thank you, then finishes answering the question. I had to go Google it.
Clearly he's done it before, but if that was the first time he'd ever done it, that would be especially impressive. All right, next up, type 1 photo of the Titanic during construction. It's the earliest known Titanic photo, and I love the history. So
I
that's
love it. All right, give me that big frame. I got a big one for you.
Let's go.
My favorite modern sports cards are Kabooms.
Oh, that's nuts.
This is an uncut. The first year was 13 basketball, LeBron, all the whole crew. It's pretty amazing, and I'm pretty proud of it.
That's insane. Where'd you find it? In an auction?
Where do we buy? Auction, right? Golden, yeah. Pretty sweet.
Wow. I've never seen one of those for Kaboom.
I'm pretty pumped about it.
Okay, that's special.
Thank you.
Next up, this is my last historical item. Then I've got something much more modern next. George Washington, when he was my age, he was in debt. This is a bond receipt to cover his debts for 16 shillings, which apparently covered his debts at the time.
Shillings.
Shillings.
Oh, US dollar.
Yep. All right. You have one left?
I do.
Okay.
So being someone who's been collecting since I was really 8, 9, 10. So to think that I now have a meaningful collectible in the market with VeeFriends, kind of my Pokemon meets Sesame Street meets Marvel. This is the logo of our world, the very, 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 very lucky black cat. And this is the 1/1 gold from our Series 2 set. As you can see, tough grade, but I'm thrilled to have it. And, it's really crazy. Like, you go through life and it just becomes unbelievable. Like the thing that, I would have loved, like at 15, if I was into VeeFriends, this is something I could have never even thought of ever even owning if I was into it. And now to be the creator of it is pretty crazy. So I bought this from a fan who pulled it and a collector. And it's been, I will say, building a collectible and an intellectual property is no question going to be the great professional joy of my life.
I love that. But before I show you my last item, I want to ask you a question off that, because this is something I think about all the time, in there being a 10 to 20 to 30-year lag before peak values of items. And that has to do with when kids growing up collecting it hit their financial maturity. Is that something that you think about when it comes to VeeFriends and even all of the categories you collect and buy, and then what you want to put on that mantle?
As a collector, yes. VeeFriends is unique because anybody who's listening knows that there was so much hysteria around the NFT summer. And so it had a spike in value, both in NFT form and trading. The trading cards have actually built nice and slow behind the scenes. So, but yes, I think you've got it. And it's like always how I think. Like the entire toy category works this way. They reboot iconic toy brands every 25 years because they know now the mom is going to buy strawberry shortcake for their kid because they loved strawberry shortcake when they were a kid. So yeah, I have a lot. Most of my investing is incredibly long play, and that's how I actually did collect video games and wrestling figures in the mid 90s, before eBay, before the internet, because I already even intuitively thought these things will be collectible, because I already back then knew, oh, baseball cards used to not be worth anything and people put Willie Mazes into their bike spokes, but then when they became 40 and had money, they wanted it again. Well, these LJNs in video games, us 90s kids, 80s kids love them. I bet you they'll be worth something one day. Obviously, I could have never imagined collectibles becoming a pillar of society the way they've become.
And, some people estimate that the market cap of all collectibles is somewhere in the $500 billion range. When you look at other, properties or, just items like silver, for example, being what, trillion plus, $10 trillion, gold similarly. Where do you think collectibles can get compared to some of these other asset classes? And do you think there's a world where collectibles as a whole are as valuable as the most valuable company in the world?
Of course I do. Yeah, I think what you're seeing look at the things that have become collectibles that people didn't think would be collectibles in the last 50 years. Trading cards,
Yep.
sneakers, toys, video games, VHS. But Andy Warhol was incredibly ahead of his time with understanding that pop culture was the currency. And I think that that's where we're at. Like, I don't even understand how anyone could take the counterpoint of view on this.
What,
Every day, like, look
so
what happens with like Stanley Cups.
it's
Like,
a real thing,
I,
everything.
I keep telling people, music, fashion, sports, they've become pillars of our society that you couldn't even understand society without them. I believe collecting is a very human trait. Just like there were gladiators and they were fighting, and all these years later, we have UFC, and everyone's like, oh, how did UFC become so popular? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like more obvious that UFC would be popular if you look at the history of time. People are like, oh, why do people collect comic books or toys? That's so silly. What are you talking about? You go back 2,000 years, people are literally walking and collecting rocks and shells. Like, really?
And
It's
yeah,
We're hoarders. We're mad. Like, humans are so obvious. And now that we've blurred the lines of youth and grown-upness, right? Like, so like the generation right before me was the generation that, like, you left the toys at the table once you became 22 and you became a grown-up.
sure.
We, the 48-year-olds, the kind of 55 to 45-year-old set, this Gen X actually I don't think gets enough credit for this. I think Gen X, which never gets talked about, obviously, right? Boomers, millennials, Gen Z. Gen X is a small generation in some ways, but I do think is the generation that got so affected by grunge, by hip hop, by baseball cards, by Nintendo, by anime, like Ren and Stimpy, Beavis, but like we're the ones that got bombarded with because of the expansion of cable television into so many more interests. And I think we have we're the 48-year-olds that wear hats and sneakers to work instead of suits. And we're the ones that like will buy this kind of stuff instead of going to Sotheby's and buying like a vase from 1800 in Europe. And I think now the cat's fully out of the bag. And I think the millennials and the Gen Zers and the Gen Alpha will be much better, much more extreme versions of us. And I think Gen Alpha, who's 9 years old right now, when they're 40, they're going to look at like collecting the way we look at like listening to music or going to the
Sure.
movies. It's going to be matter of fact. Everyone's going to be collecting something, and there'll probably be 6 or 7 other categories of collecting that we don't see right now. But I think toys and comics and cards and art and other and artifacts will continue, and clothes and sneakers will continue to double and triple and quadruple down, and some new things will pop up. Like, I think that's where digital will definitely play. Like, I do think NFTs would be a viable option. And then I think even weird things like collecting, like I kind of want to own myspace.com pretty bad right now.
What, the nostalgia value there?
I'm like, man, what if I own like, GeoCities. Like, there's something about like early.com URLs that I want to collect.
Yeah, it's cemented in history, no doubt. Yeah, there's
Right?
real
So like, what's the
value.
difference between myspace.com and like a Lucille Ball artifact from the Lucy show? You know what I mean? Or like Dick Clark's first, like pop culture.
Yeah, it
And so,
means stuff to different generations. I couldn't agree more. It's straight human nature, and it's going to be exciting to watch the kids that grew up while it being cool grow up.
well,
That's gonna be what's fun too.
that's why I think that's right. That's the big punchline. That's
All
why.
right.
Okay. All right.
Last item quickly. I think I've told you about this before. I've been buying all the original artwork for SpongeBob.
I think it's brilliant.
Thank you, man. These are
Bro,
the hand-painted,
I think you're gonna crush on that.
one of one photo matched backgrounds that created the show, probably viewed by more than 1 billion people worldwide. Some of these are the covers on Amazon Prime, on Paramount, and it's the most used memes on the internet. So it's buying a sliver of the internet that are one of
That reminds me of, I'll leave everybody with this last thing. One of my favorite things that I'm collecting very quietly, because it's exhausting for me to post things I collect because it comes with a lot of drama. But it's so funny you bring that up. I am obsessed with fictional character rookie cards.
Yeah.
I've been really, really collecting. And so like because I love cards so much, like those original cells, and when I was getting the collecting in the 90s cell, I was buying Bugs Bunny cells at like a state sale, like super cool. I'm into that. But like to me, like owning SpongeBob's rookie card is like the coolest. And like the Bugs Bunny and the Scooby-Doo and like all that. I think it'll be interesting to see when and if that genre gets really rolling.
It's going to be exciting. Well,
Awesome.
you're the best, man. Appreciate you
Talk soon.
always.
Stay well.
See ya.